This is Super Yacht News with Sisman.
Hi, welcome back to the channel. Okay, so we've got some information about Motor Yacht Eclipse. Now, you'll know that Motor Yacht Eclipse is owned by Roman Abramovich. He's owned this vessel since it was delivered in 2009. It's one of the biggest boats in the world, 162 meters or 533 feet, and it has a gross tonnage of 13,500. It's a huge thing. Now, what's interesting about the information that we've discovered is that on the IMO database, now the IMO database is like ground zero for all vessels. Every vessel is given an IMO number, and that number stays with the boat pretty much forever, regardless of whether it changes ownership or even if it changes flag state. Now, if you change flag state, the call sign changes, the MMSI number changes, which is the number for communicating with the vessel, but the IMO number stays the same. Now, when we were looking at the details on the IMO database, we found in the section that talks about the registered owner, it says reported sold undisclosed interest, and the date is effective the 1st of February 2022. And for the address, it says unknown. Now, that's very unusual for the IMO. For them to accept that they don't know the ownership of that boat, it's very, very unusual. It's probably temporary, but according to that information, it's been like that since the 1st of February. Now, we don't recall seeing that information when we looked this up in the past, and we've looked it up more recently than February. Now, prior to that date, it was listed as owned by Dole Private Clients Limited, and that was from the 24th of the 11th, 2014. Now, we know that the boat was still connected to Roman Abramovich after that date because we had information about crew members being potentially paid with crypto because he was unable to move money around because of the sanctions. So that was after this date. So we know that he is involved with that yacht, and it's most likely still in his possession. What's strange about it is companies that are dealing with yachts, they have to adhere to certain rules, especially yachts that are involved in the sanctions. If a company is approached by a yacht, or if they're thinking about doing business with a yacht, they'll have to confirm that that yacht or the owner of the yacht, the beneficial owner, is not under any sanctions. They have to adhere to something known as the Know Your Client rules. They have to be sure that they're not dealing with someone who's on the sanctions list. Now, one of the things that businesses can request is a certificate of incumbency. Now, every vessel is owned, no vessel is owned by a person, it's always owned by a company. And in that company, you have shareholders, and the certificate of incumbency will list the shareholders of the company that owns that vessel. And that's the best way for you to get information about the ownership of the vessel, to ask for a certificate of incumbency. Anyway, we'll move on to the next story. So this is about Royal Romance. We did a video, the last video that we did, we talked about Royal Romance, and we said that it had been searched by the Croatian authorities in conjunction with the FBI, from the US government, obviously. The US Department of Justice were involved in that. They were looking into money laundering, and they were working with the Croatian government. Now, one of the things that always comes up in the comments when we ever talk about the FBI being involved in searches outside of the US is they didn't know that they had jurisdiction outside of the US and things like that. Well, they don't have jurisdiction outside of the US, but many governments work together on international crime or potential international crime. So if the FBI are working on a case and they find that there are connections in other countries, they will contact the governments or the police forces of those countries, and they will ask to work with them. And that's how all countries work. All Western countries work this way. The latest news on Royal Romance is that the vessel is going to be sold. So the Ukraine says that the Croatian court has cleared the way for the 93 meter or 305 foot super yacht to be sold at auction. and the money is going to go to Ukraine, which makes sense, right? So the yacht was built by Fedship as build number 1005, and it was built in 2015, or it was delivered in 2015. Now, I've seen in a number of news outlets that they're saying this boat was built in 2005. That is incorrect. This yacht is only 7 years old. The registered owner of Royal Romance is a company called Lanelia Holdings Limited. This is what I was talking about before with the certificates of incumbency. You want to know who the shareholders are of that company, right? Because that is generally will tell you who owns that vessel. That company is based in the Marshall Islands, according to the IMO database. Now, it is believed that the main shareholder of that company is Viktor Medvedchuk's wife. Now, her name is Oksana Marchenko. She's Ukrainian also, and she is a very well-known TV personality in Ukraine. Now, we believe that she is the registered owner, or she is the main shareholder of that company, but we were unable to confirm that independently. However, the special branch of the Ukrainian government, which is called the Asset Recovery Agency, which we mentioned in the previous video, and their acronym is ARMA, A-R-M-A. Now, they are tasked with finding, this is from their own website, finding, tracing, and management of assets derived from corruption. And they said that their agents had flown to Croatia. Now, we don't know if the search that was carried out in conjunction with the Croatian authorities and the FBI was also with the Ukrainian authorities. It makes sense that they would do it at the same time, but we don't know if that was the case. The Ukrainian authorities, they went to Croatia and they inspected the arrested yacht belonging, this is what they said, this is a statement that they said, they inspected the arrested yacht belonging to the family members of a people's deputy and one of the leaders of a political force banned in Ukraine. So they're saying that the owner of the boat is a family member of Viktor Medvedchuk. So it seems to go towards what we said earlier about that it's registered in his wife's name. So if the sale of this yacht goes ahead, it will be the most expensive yacht sold as a result of the sanctions that came about because of the invasion of Ukraine. Now, as we mentioned in the last video, Viktor Medvedchuk, who was charged with treason in Ukraine, was handed over to Russia in a prisoner exchange in September. So we'll keep track of that story and we'll update you when we have more. All right, so we've got one more story. This is about motor yacht Sarafsa. You'll remember Sarafsa, we talked about it in a few videos, where the vessel was effectively seized. Well, not effectively, it was seized from the previous owner, the Saudi prince, and it was taken by the bank because of non-payments of loans. If you want to see more about that, you check the link up here based on all of that information from a previous video. Now, we have asked we've asked a number of questions to the new owners, which is Credit Suisse Bank. We've also asked if we can go on board, and that is currently being looked into. As soon as we know more about that, we'll let you know. But what we do have here today is we have more footage of the boat in Monaco, including some video footage of the boat when it moved berths a few days ago. You can see here that the condition of the hull looks pretty bad. It is effectively, basically it's been sandblasted or blasted by salt water, which is almost as bad as sandblasting. It hasn't been painted for quite some time. Now, what we've been told by sources close to the vessel is that the prince wasn't that fussed about the exterior condition, and he had the hull painted by the crew with rollers, which is very unusual for a yacht that has a fairing on it, which is what you see here. That's normally something that cruise ships do because they have a steel hull. But it's very unusual to have people painting with rollers on a fairing. But that would explain how the vessel seems to have deteriorated relatively quickly. Now, we also have some footage here from a dry dock period in 2019, and you can see that the hull has been painted there, and it will have had anti-fouling applied, and it looks pristine there. And that's just the underwater section. But you can see that the maroon section of the hull also looks in good condition. I've also got some still photos here from 2019, which I took myself when I was in Monaco. and it looks in good condition. So that business of the painting with rollers, I think that explains why the hull seems to have deteriorated so quickly. Going back to the footage of the boat moving, you can see that there seems to be quite a number of crew on board, but you can see that girls are working with the fenders there, and that seems to suggest to me, based on my own experience, that the stewardesses have been asked to help with fender duties whilst the boat is moving, and that normally happens. I mean, it's possible that some of them are female deckhands, but most likely there are not that many deckhands on board, and they're probably stewardesses that are helping out, and that's quite common on a boat that doesn't have enough crew. Yeah, so anyway, we're still waiting to hear back on the questions we've asked to the new owner, the bank, and also of whether we can go and visit that boat for a tour. All right, just one last thing. Be sure to check out our Patreon page at patreon.com/esysman. You can see our exclusive videos that will not come to YouTube. You get early access to features which are also advert free, and you can also suggest topics and suggest questions for future Q&As. Yeah, you can check that out at patreon.com/esysman. All right, I'm going to leave it there. If you've got any information about any of the stories we've covered or any other stories, be sure to get in touch through the About page of the YouTube channel. You can get us on Instagram, you can get us on Facebook Messenger, and you can also get us on Threema. Be sure to like this video, hit the subscribe button, and hit the bell for future notifications. All right, guys, thanks very much for watching, and I'll catch up with you soon. Bye-bye.